Okay, as I've stated, the solar system is a circuit. Right now I'm going to show half of the circuit, which is the sun's connection to the 8 planets. And that's what these yellow ropes are, from the sun out to each planet. Each planet is individually connected to the sun, and as the planets orbit, these will cross paths, but they don't do near as much for earthquakes and volcanic activity and storms as the connections between the planets do. But I don't have those showing here because it gets too confusing. And I'm hoping this will show you the orbital part of it. Now, we use part of this demonstration in another video, which I'll say now, is these connections here are what cause the prominences on the sun. The prominences we see are probably from the bigger planets, Jupiter and Saturn, but it could be from some of the others too. Just depends on the situation. But this is half of the circuit. The sun helps feed the planets their electric, gravitational, electromagnetic, and electrical feeds. It's all bundled into one. And these are probably more bowed up and down to the center of the sun, like arching, but it's more like a fan. And there's the same thing what you're seeing here is on the bottom side, but I don't have the bottom side done because I can't do it. So what you see here is just the north or top sides. There's also the same thing underneath. I mean, it's more like a fan. It's not just a string. It's probably more of a fan. But it'll start centered on the sun's north side and then to the north side of the planets, to the top side. Be the south side of Venus, but the north side of the rest of the planets. And the south side has the exact mirror of the north. So as the planets orbit, there's connecting strings to the sun get twisted. They get bent around as the core turns basically with the Earth and the inner planets. The core is spinning faster than what the outer planets are orbiting. And that gets these lines in a bow, in a curve around the core. As the core turns, the planet's not moving that fast. It gets in a bow and it'll rip across the sun to straighten up again. That's what gives you your prominences. And the little planets can do this also. So this is the circuit of just the sun connection to the planets. And I'm hoping when I turn this on, which this is not correct, it shows the 4 outer planets, 4 big planets orbiting in the same speed, and the 4 inner planets orbiting at the same speed. But this toy doesn't show how they actually orbit, and we know that. But this should show a little bit of how they're connected with just the sun. I'm going to put the other connections in here in a minute, but I can't run it with those other connections, and I'll show you why when I do that in this next section. So I'm hoping this will work. But I've got the bigger planets hooked up here on a bearing, and the lower planets are hooked to the core on a different bearing. I'm hoping this will show you more of how it works. But like I said, the speeds are not right. They're orbiting speeds, but it gives you an idea of how they're connected to the sun. Hopefully this will work. I haven't tried it. As you can see, it's working pretty good. The core is rotating with the inner planets at a faster speed. The outer planets are much slower, and they have their different variances of years it takes them to do it. But this is what the connections to the sun do. And that's why you get prominences. As the sun turns faster than the outer planets, their connections get bowed and curved around. They get pulled around and they snap back. Pulled around and they snap back. So you got to imagine that, because I cannot show that. I have no way to do that with this, and I don't have the animation capabilities. I wish I did. But this is the connection that the sun has to the planets. This is constant, continuous, it never quits. And when these do cross each other, there's a little bit of short circuit and such, but not near like there is between the planets. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. But this is the sun to planet part of the solar system circuit. The entire universe is connected, galaxy to galaxy, in a similar fashion. But it's much more power moving than what you see here. So I'll let this play a minute, you can see. And like I said, you have to imagine each planet orbiting at its own speed. Mercury fastest, then Venus, then Earth, then Mars, then Jupiter, then Saturn, then Uranus, and then Neptune as far as speed. So these do get crossed up more than what they're showing here, but this is basically what it does. It stays connected. And one may line up with another, but these connections here are not as intense when they have cross-ups and entanglements as it is between the planets, what I'm going to show next. But I just wanted to give you an idea of how the half of the circuit where the sun helps feed the planets and holds on to the planets works in this little demonstration here. So that's this part. Now I'm going to add planet to planet in with this, and it gets very confusing, but I'm going to use a different color, a red colored thread, to connect the planets. And I can't run this because all of our short circuits and breaks and continuances and reconnections, all it does is wind the string up around the center. But I'll show you how it looks with the string, but I can't run it. And we'll move on and do that. Okay, before I showed you just the circuit connections of the sun to the planets, which they're still here, the yellow threads. But the red ones are the planet to planet. They really don't connect with the sun because the sun feeds the planets a lot of their energy and is connected directly to them, and the planets are connected to each other. And this gives you an idea of what the circuit looks like when it's fully completed. And like I said, this whole thing here, the yellow, there's another mirror image of that on the south side underneath here, which I don't have it applied. And I think the red ones are pretty much, the whole planet are equatorial between each other. I don't think there may be a north and south to a certain extent when they connect, but it could go from south to north depending on where a quake would happen on the Earth. It could come from the north side of Jupiter and hit the south side of the Earth, depending on their tilts and their planes of connection, where they're at in their plane of orbit to each other, how high they are to each other. I can't turn the switch on to orbit the planets, or our circuits are going to get all tangled up. They don't break and connect like they do in reality. But I can turn the whole thing. I have it on a pivot here. I just want to show you a few things. The way I've got this set up is the four main outer planets are exactly opposite, 2 and 2, and the four inner planets are exactly opposite, 2 and 2. So, these two smaller gas planets, Uranus and Neptune, are not connected because the sun has broken them. They've broke connection and getting ready to connect again. Saturn and Jupiter are broke, and they're getting ready to connect here again as Jupiter comes around. And the four inner planets are the same way. These two are not connected, and these two are not, but they're connected to each other around, if you see that. They're always connected around, but it's the ones straight between them that get broke by the sun or reconnected after it passes the sun. So I can show you, if you look, just kind of look at the threads, how every planet's connected to every other planet, other than what's not broken. Connections are not broken by the sun. Like the Earth to Neptune could have a string going through here, but with the outside of this yellow part of the sun, it wouldn't be there because these could not connect. Neptune and Earth, Neptune and Uranus, it's got to be outside of the diameter of the sun. But I'm just showing you how this is the circuit. And the sun connection to the planets, that circuit usually doesn't get broken between any of them. It stays connected pretty much. It may enhance when two get in line, like Jupiter and Mercury are in line with the sun, with each other with the sun. You may get a little extra power to one of them or both, but it's not near like the planet connections to each other, which is when we feel quakes. Because it doesn't matter which two get into a bind or which three line up. Even if the Earth's not directly involved, it's going to feel it. They all feel any change in the circuit. But what I want to show you with this a little bit, let me go on around so you can get an idea of how the lines are. You've got Jupiter to Mars, Mercury to Mars, Mercury to Jupiter. But if you notice, if Jupiter was Mars is going to be faster, so it's going to just keep making this triangle here wider and wider because it's going to come around faster than these two are going to turn. I'm going to try to show you in a three-way a connection, a three-way short works. I've showed you how the brakes work when two planets break connection, when they go, the sun gets between them, or when two planets reconnect, when the sun, one comes around the sun and reconnects with one it got broke with earlier. Those are those two, disconnect and reconnect. But the short circuit would be, let me see if I can find one pretty easy here, is if, well, it's hard to show it with the way I've got this set up, but if Saturn was to come around faster and pull this connection with the Earth right here where Venus would get in the middle, you see how this one connection here comes in the same connection with these two, so it becomes one big connection. So that makes a jar. It shorts it out. The sun's still feeding this one, the sun's still feeding that one, and the sun's still feeding the Earth. But when these two connect like that, these three have to balance out, and these two cause that to happen. So it's a jerk. But when that jerks, this jerks, this jerks, this jerks, everything jerks to rebalance the electrical power. It's like a circuit, like a battery. If you have a battery hooked up and you add another motor on that battery, the battery drains, the motor that was running drains as the new motor kicks in to run. So as these redistribute the power, everybody gets jerked like that, just like that. Pow, pow. So they all feel it, and it's a continually changing circuit. It's never the same. It's always, oh, this planet, that planet, this planet, that planet. Constant, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. It's constantly changing. It just depends on who's where. Which planet is where and who it's connected to and who it's breaking connection with, who it's reconnecting with, and who's getting in a three-way lineup. Just like if Neptune and Saturn got in line with Mars, same thing again. This line will take over these two lines, they'll become one, and all the feeds from the sun have to reconnect, get connected through that, if you see what I'm saying. This is connected to this with these two. This is connected to this with these two. This is connected to this with those two. But when these two become one, these three sun connections all of a sudden are connected. You know, there's no balance in capacitance. Right now they're kind of separated as this triangle situation here. Once this comes together, that all changes. It changes the power that was going on individually. They're now one when they line up. They're now one circuit. This was 3 circuits. Well, actually 4, but it's 3 circuits with the sun. Once it comes together, then it's basically one big circuit for a moment, for a while, till it rebalances and everybody feels the shake. Then it balances out, and then this will come on around and it'll be a triangle, but it'll be on this side. Anyway, it doesn't actually work that way because Neptune's the slowest orbiting. But I'm just showing you how the circuits work, how the circuit works. And every solar system in the universe works this way. Like I said, galaxies are connected similar to this. It's just the way it works. So I was just trying to use this as a visual demonstration of how the circuit is. Okay? That's what this was for.